Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. It's great to see you. You know what I did not account for today? I have got such a cute sweater on with bananas. And I forgot about the green screen, how I'm kind of transparent like a ghost. I'm transparent in the bananas. That hardly ever happens. But you know what else I've got going on today? I've just got this amazing package that arrived yesterday, and I did not open it yet. I'm going to stop making all this crazy noise, I promise. I did not open it yet. I'm telling you, this recovery from the surgery is way worse than I thought. Why did I think I was just going to drive myself home as I did and just move on? It's been really hard. My arm is super swollen. It's very uncomfortable. It continues to be painful. It's now that the bandage is off, my arm has, if you can see, a dent in it. I've got a black shirt on, a visible dent. Fantastic. Just call me Denty. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm losing my mind a little bit. I have to admit. I was not expecting this. I was told that they were doing a centimeter around a freckle. This is like my whole. Let's stop. We'll stop. It has been rough over here and rough. And it is nice to be together and to be able to spend some time together and chat and be cozy. Because there's been a lot of ups and downs in the last few days for me. Catherine, great to see you. Good morning from overcast Southern California. Kids back at school. Oh, yeah. You know, I hate it when they're at school. I love it when they're home. But when they're home, no matter what, it was like a tough thing to have them home and have had surgery, although it was at the end of the week, because it's like, what are we doing now? What are we doing now? You know, just constant wanting to go out and do stuff. And just been feeling a bit wiped out. So they are back at school. They are not happy about it. But weirdly, Teddy was more happy than Joss, I have to say, because I guess he's been making some friends at school, and yeah, he feels like a bit of a kingpin, I think, in the classroom. So yeah, he was real excited to get back. Jessie, not so much. I cut her hair for her last night, and she always wants it in a little 1920s style bob. She looks so cute, so pretty. She's the sweetest little thing. All right, let's see. Oh, Lisa, great to see you. Great to see you. I don't know if I know what you're working on right now. You cranked out a few projects in a row that were stellar. Yeah, I wonder if I've seen your current project. Cheryl, great to see you. Is it gorgeous on the Cape today? Oh, I would love to walk up the main street of Chatham today and eat lunch at the Squire. Could almost make it. I can make it in a couple of hours. Robin, great to see you. Good morning in Wisconsin. Linda B, happy Monday from sunny but chilly New Jersey. Absolutely. Still flannel. Me too. That's why I had to put my banana vest on because it was cold. It was cold with just a shirt. It's nice and sunny and blue, but it is still really crisp. It's crisp out there. Linda H, good afternoon in sunny Massachusetts. Great to see you. Shannon, good morning. Great to see you. Pam, hello. Oh, good, Pam. You were just reminded me. We're going to talk about the judging thing too. Happy Monday from Liberty, South Carolina. Coffee in hand. Oh, that I just finished mine, so I'm not doing disgusting sipping while we're on. Ryan, happy sunny Earth Day. Is it Earth Day? Oh man, I'm out of touch with all these great days. From North Texas, try to spend a little time outdoors. Absolutely. Earth is endlessly magical. It is. It is. You know, I was just writing. I in bed last night. I was writing the article for one of my contributions to Magpie Times this coming issue. Um, and you know, my piece is fairy houses, right? So I'm doing a piece. It's Judy's turn to do the cover, but I'm still doing a really large piece. Maybe we can use it on the back cover. That's fairy houses, right? So I won't show you the design because that's part of the next Magpie. Huge shout out, by the way, if you have magical summer rugs, please send them in for the gallery. We're really looking at another table of contents that is just amazing. Lots of different people again, lots of different conversations. It's a great issue. It really is amazing. But I was putting together my issue and I was thinking about fairy houses and all of the things that you find in nature when you go for a walk. If you're in the right mindset, right? If you're not just walking for exercise, as I sometimes am, and you're actually taking the time to look at the magic stuff, there is so much on the ground, in the trees, so many little things to take away in the context of making a fairy house, right? That is such a big thing lately. I have two articles for sure that I'm going to put into Magpie, and I was thinking about doing just a one-page thing on dyes, just like the most magical, for me, the most magical colors of dyes, like the mossy greens and the purples and the ones that perform a little bit differently than others. I thought that could be a helpful short article. Um, yeah, and I was thinking of doing something different from the game page. I love doing the crossword, but I thought of another interactive thing that I could put in there that might be a surprise. So I'm working on my end of it too. I'm not putting in as much myself as last time because Judy's doing, I think, 3 pieces, like not all full-length articles, but she's got some really cool stuff going on, and a few people contributing who are going to be new to you that are just amazing fiber artists. It's going to be a great issue. I'm super excited. So be thinking about whether you have something to submit for the gallery section of this upcoming Magpie Times deadline, May 17, or project forward to the following issue, which will be the country fair issue. And that encompasses like autumn, animals, everything that you would find at a country fair, right? All of like the vegetables, all of the harvest stuff, also the Halloween stuff, right? It will be that issue since this is a quarterly. So be thinking about that. Let me catch up with hellos, and then I want to show you what arrived in the mail. And then I want to talk a little bit about country fairs and judging. Because Pam asked a great question on our Facebook group, which is Rug Hooking in Punch Needle Club, about submitting rugs specifically to solder. But in general, I just want to talk about from the point of view of a rug judge in the rug division of the Big E here, what the specs are, like what people are looking for, what people are supposed to be looking for. All right, so first things first, sorry, easily distracted. Karen, great to see you. Good morning in sunny Black Forest, Colorado. Carrie, great to see you. Oh, I'm so glad you're there catching us live. Great to see you. You're in Michigan. Oh, how beautiful. Dominique, hello in Quebec. Great to see you. Welcome. Catherine N. Hello from sunny, breezy Missouri. Oh, getting lots of nice even weather though, right? All kind of expected spring weather. Nobody's saying it's snowing, right, Karen? It's not still snowing in Colorado, is it? That would be too much, just too much. Um, Barbara, great to see you streaming in the backyard. Streaming in the backyard. That's such a great line, isn't it? That should be the name of an album or something. April, great to see you. Good morning. And Ryan says, need to get my summer wine rug sent in for Magpie consideration. Yet whenever you still have tons of time, right? Just send a photo whenever you have a chance. There's no huge rush. Tons of time. Tons of time. Make it just the way you want it. And make sure you write something personal about it, that makes it extra special. Valerie, great to see you. Beautiful day there in Delaware. Oh, I'm so glad. Marilyn, great to see you in Northwest Indiana. Happy morning, happy afternoon. It snowed on Saturday. Oh, Karen, you're kidding, but it melted quickly. Colorado is such it's not unexpected, right? Because it's all the time. But you have such radical, extreme, changing weather, and from when I was out there, different from one region to the next. I guess because of the altitude, because the huge shifts and sudden shifts in altitude. But it was so surprising to me that it could be so mild and sunny in one place, and an hour away in the mountains be like a raging, dangerous storm, snowstorm. Yeah, whew. Dramatic. It's very dramatic weather. Judy, great to see you. Brilliant and sunny in southern Indiana after a very near frost overnight. Oh, man. Cece, hi from Quincy, Mass. Oh, Quincy, Mass. How fun. Great to see you. Welcome. I'm going to keep an eye on Buddy's coming in on the tab. So you know what I got here that arrived yesterday? Get ready for some bananas and sweatpants. That didn't sound right, but you know what I mean. I got this rug in the mail from our buddy, Louisa Creed. Remember the Friday night episode I did like last month maybe on Louisa Creed? And God, was that her book, right? That was a great episode. And she was so happy with the episode that she sent me a present, right? I definitely don't expect presents, but I'm excited to have it because as soon as I finished that episode, well, not as soon, the next day, I logged onto her shopping site, which I should have done first, but I was quite busy getting the show ready. And when I logged onto her site, almost all of her rugs were sold out with the exception of like one or two. And I was like, dang it. I'm very happy that like all of like everything sold, but I should have got in there first and said like, can you hold this rug for me? Let me pay you. She was traveling at the time. So she said, nope, the one that I liked was still luckily available. And she said, I'm going to send it to you. And I said, don't you dare. Right. But I doth protest too much. And she did send it. What a sweetheart. And I have to say, I'm keeping an eye on Louisa because remember that her publisher, Ryan Bartlett, Rylett Press, Jamie at Rylett Press, he sent me a message to say thanks for doing the show on Louisa, and that there might be a show. He's trying to plan a show of her work this coming autumn in England. I forget what part of England she's in, but I'm really thinking about going. If that goes forward, I'm really thinking about going. I love her work. Want to catch her while she's still busy and working. Oh, there's a card here. I'm gonna have to read that later. Oh, what a sweetie! Look at this. She's got this all wrapped up in a nice piece of cotton that I'm going to hook with. Oh, I forgot what the image looks like, so I'm really excited to open it. Remember from the episode that Louisa said, ow, that she loves making rugs and she loves sitting with the rug for a little while, having it up on the wall until it goes to the eventual owner, right? So I guess this one has come to the eventual owner. I will never get rid of this. I admire her, love her so much. I will never get rid of this. So this is By the Edge of the Wood by Louisa Creed, York. Oh, of course York. Oh, I love York. 31 by 31, 2019. Are you ready? There we go. Make sure I can hold it with the stupid arm. Oh, that's so pretty. Can you see that okay? And remember the classic Louisa Creed border, a bit of a stained glass mashup. Oh, it's all ready to hang and everything. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, I'm so happy with that. These colors aren't coming in that great because there are a lot of greens. Oh, I think I have to hold it with this arm. God, that's gorgeous. It's curled up a little because it was in travel, but the corners look like this, right? Oh, I'm going to try to do this again. Can you see how nubby? Oh, it's really, really super nubbies. Joy, good to see you. Oh, it is so pretty, isn't it? She's such, like, the classic British rag rug, old school style of hooking. It's a nice kind of snowy scene. Oh, look at this. This is like fashion fabric in here. That looks like a blouse or something, right? And look over here. Can you see these bits here? More like printed cottons and stuff, like a skirt. So a little bit of it's wool, a lot of it's cotton. I think it's mostly wool, but there's a lot of cotton and other materials in there. Oh, I got to get it out of my arm. My arm's going to give up. God, am I excited about that. Well, you'll see that. I'll decide where I'm going to put that up. What a beautiful gift. I feel like such a skunk when I get such nice things in the mail like that, you know, because I wanted to buy it. But what a beautiful gift. You know, I love the way that she also, marks it. It seems like she did like, yikes, a bit of pyrography on the back. It looked like it was burnt, didn't it? Oh, that got me out of breath just doing that one stupid little thing, just standing up in my banana vest. All right. All right. So that was a beautiful gift. Louisa, if you are watching, thank you so much. That is like, it's beyond kind. It's incredible. It's too big of a gift. It really is. Because she's such a well-known rug hooker. This is like, should be in a museum. It's going to be in the museum of my bedroom, I think, which also didn't sound right. But I'm super excited. I'm super excited. Oh, what she got here? Oh, isn't that pretty? Oh, it's going to be hard. Her writing is a little bit hard to read. I'm going to have to pour over that a little bit. She's got a pretty postcard here with one of her dogs on it. And she's very well known for her cats, isn't she? Oh, Louis and Louisa Creed. Remember, Louis passed away a while back. So this is a bit of an older card, isn't it? This is a piece of history. I'm not going to get rid of that. I'm never going to get rid of that. Remember, Louis was her husband who worked in a very different style, but they sat together and logged a lot of hours sitting in the front room working together. Such a beautiful story, right? I hope that you caught that episode. If not, look for it, right? It's one of our Friday night episodes. It was a beautiful, long episode about Louise's book, Louisa Creed, Creed. Oh, amazing. So let's talk about rugs and submitting rugs. Let's talk about this real quickly and let's be very candid, shall we? No point in beating around the bush. So we were talking about Pam, and then we're going to return to Ken. I need a good, this is really bothering me. It's not painful, it's super, super uncomfortable. It's going to be good to have a nice, gentle episode looking at some old rugs, and I picked some more bits out of Kent's book in his own words, and we can look at some of these beautiful old rugs and dissect them together. But before we do that, let's talk about as we approach summer and fair season, right? Summer and fall is typically fair season no matter where you are in North America. And Pam said, what about submitting rugs to solder? Okay, so I don't have a great relationship with solder, right? We are like oil and water, right? But I was going to say oil and vinegar, which is fantastic. I mean, if you can't have blue cheese, you might as well have oil and vinegar. So I can't speak specifically to solder, but I'll circle back there. And I'll start by saying, in general, right, because I am a judge, I am the rug division judge at the Big E, and I'm a teaching judge. So this year I'll be teaching. When I say teaching, it sounds so pretentious, but there will be other judges in there from other divisions who just want to know what the deal is in terms of here's my quilt, here's my rug, here's my basket. What are the ground rules, right? What is the expectation? And with the Big E is a huge fair in this part of the country, right? So in terms of the judging being standardized and fair, it should set the benchmark, right? Because it is the largest fair. The main object at the fair, from the point of view of being a judge, is that we are always comparing the rug to itself and not to other rugs, right? I could have worded that better. We're not comparing rug to rug. So I'm not putting two rugs on the table in front of me and going, well, the sky is better in this one. This person's must be better. It can't work like that. It can't work like that. Because if you don't start with the idea that each rug is a unique expression and invention of its maker, if you start with the idea that one is good, one is better, and one is best, you're not going to land in the right place, right? Because then it becomes a game of ordering things according to how great they are. It's not how it should work. We should be looking at each individual object according to its own merit. So in these fairs, and it will be different with solder, it's anonymous, right? So I'm not supposed to know whose rug it is. Now, I've done the judging there 2 years in a row, and I did recognize the work of at least two people repeating. Style-wise, I remembered because it was distinctive and it was important, and I remembered. So we don't know who the people are who are submitting, which is, I think, an important element. And I think at solder you do know who is entering. So we'll circle back to that too. But the idea is when you get a rug, right, at like in a different context at a fair, what the judge should be looking for, right? And you can't control it if at your local fair, country fair, whatever fair, you can't control it if the ruling board of judges is a collective coven of witches. You can't control that. If it's all about friends and friendships and alliance, and my eye just started twitching because these people, there's nothing you can do about that other than usurp and start a revolution and be one of the judges next year. There's nothing you can really do about that. But that is a dynamic that exists in a lot of smaller fairs. It's the church dynamic, isn't it? If you ever tried to volunteer for something at a church or help, you get so cowed by people telling you that the coffee's in the wrong place, you put the cookies down in the wrong place, that makes you never want to come back and offer any more help, right? It's that kind of mindset. It exists. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at a rug, at least at the Big E, we are looking for technique, right? And I don't look at the back of the rug for technique, and I don't think they do that at solder or in celebration anymore either. It's just like math, well, it's just like mathematics used to be. It's not like mathematics is at school anymore. But if you arrive at the right place, how you got there, for me, isn't important, and it shouldn't be important. If you got to a beautiful finished project and the front of your piece is exquisite, maybe it's technically exquisite and very, very even, or maybe it's the opposite and it's wild and woolly and there's lots of texture and variety. However, you got there, in my mind, is your business. And at least in terms of the standardized set of rules that we've established at the big E, that's how it works, right? You're the technical part of it. How you did it doesn't matter. You did it. It looks great. I'm looking at the front of it, not the back of it, right? So I'm looking at the front of it, and there is a marking for technical ability, technical prowess. Technically, how good is it? Technical shouldn't mean how even is it, right? Particularly in the rug world, because we know now that if we're talking about rugs in terms of are they technically cut very, very even? Are they perfect? Do they look manufactured? We all ought to know at this point in the craft, right, in the timeline of the craft, that that's not a thing. Some people like to do very technical work and they like that very even finish. Other people like to do wild and woolly work and they like that finish, right? So it's not like seeing a rug that has a lot of wild variety and height differences. It's not like that person has technically done a worse job, right? So it's apples and oranges, and it has to be. And if the people or person who's judging don't understand that basic bottom line theory, it's going to be bad, right? It's going to be bad because that doesn't leave any room for rugs to come in that are wild and woolly and are of a different style, right? It's like saying, let's have a cooking contest, but all of your submit like all of your best recipes. It doesn't matter what they are, but if they don't include pasta, I'm not going to like them because I like pasta the most, right? So if you give me a rice dish or a noodle dish, or you give me a steak or fish, I'm going to mark you less because really I think pasta is the best, right? It's like have you read the book The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie? Such a good book and such a good movie, where she says to her girl students, like, who is the greatest artist of all time? And I forget exactly how the text went, but one of the girls like raised her hand and said, like, is it like Michelangelo? And she was like, no. And then she named some other artist like Titian or something like that. And it was funny because it was her opinion, but it's not funny because people that have that kind of mindset often have power too, right? Because they're very confident. So it's a Miss Jean Brodie problem if somebody gets your rug and is like, technically it's not perfect, so I'm marking low in the technical department, right? This is about educating judges too, to say, listen, we're talking about a different style of work. This is what happened to the Impressionists as well. It's not that one is better than the other. It's like we're talking about different stuff, right? You got to get on board, or you got to move off the panel of judges. So things are marked on technical ability. When I look at something, a rug, in a judging sense, I'm looking to see if whatever style it's worked in, if things have been resolved nicely. So for example, there was a rug last year that was very, very pretty, but it was very bumpy and lumpy because it was so super packed that it didn't sit well. And because it didn't sit well, the way that the whipping was done on the edge, the finishing, it was very, very wavy. It was still a beautiful rug, and I would have loved to have kept it or bought it, but technically, although it was more artful than other rugs, right? That's a different category. Technically, it wasn't as well done as the other rugs. So one of the prizes that I had to give was for technical, like, superiority. Like, whoever is technically the best technically gets a specific prize from a specific company. It's like $50 or something. So that rug wouldn't have got it because technically it wasn't perfect, right? It's not that it wasn't beautiful and that I didn't love it. It's that it technically wasn't perfect. And that was the one category we were talking about. So when you look at stuff that's technical, it doesn't matter to me what style it's done in, but it does matter to me that it lays like quite flat, just as you would expect a tapestry or a rug to do, right? If I was looking or judging pieces that were wet felted, it'd be a different story, wouldn't it? Because the very nature of that material is quite different and is lumpy bumpy and is wavy and does have a lot of body and variation. But with a rug, no matter how you're hooking it, how wide, how thin, whatever, it should lay pretty flat, right? Being three-dimensional is not what we expect with a rug. So finishing the edges matters, however it's finished. The type of finish doesn't matter, but that it's done neatly and in a tidy way will get you more technical points. Looking at the back of it again, not a thing for me. Just putting it, I always put it on the floor and just look at it to see if it's sitting well, right? Because for me, that is the most important technical part. It's a flat item. It's a two-dimensional item. We're not talking about sculpture, right? Some people did put in three-dimensional stuff, and then I was judging it differently. Like somebody put in a purse last year, that would be a three-dimensional hooked piece, and then I was judging that according to the makeup of it, the seams of it. How was it put together? How complicated was the pattern? If it's a very complicated pattern, which it kind of was, it was a bit of a fancy purse, you know, I'm thinking, well, in my mind, extra points for that, an extra difficulty level, putting all these pieces, dovetailing all these pieces together in a lumpy, bumpy hooked piece, and then still having it lay very flat and the strap, everything being very uniform and nice looking with all of these pattern pieces at play, right? So technically, I'm just looking for the obvious stuff, but I'm not looking at the style that you chose to hook in, and nobody should be doing that. There are other categories. At the Big E, there are categories that I fight against that I'm not a huge fan of, like color. Um, it's always hard to judge color, right? Because I don't believe that the color wheel is the end all do all end of our conversation on color. Um, but I do have to fill out that category, right? So, um, you know, they have categories like I introduced a category that was what's it called? Let me get the language right, just in case you do judging, you're trying to set up something similar. Originality, right? We swapped out the word creativity for originality because creativity, it doesn't say much. It's not specific enough to tell me as the judge what we're talking about. So I can understand if we're talking about color, right? If you want a decision about whether your rug is good color wise, that is a moving target, right? I don't think that should be a thing. But I can say when I approach something, I can say, is it harmonious or not, right? Do the colors strike me as harmonious? Even if it is not done technically according to the color wheel and the rules of color, that's okay for me. But are the colors harmonious? Is it jarring to look at, right? And that's my least favorite category within the judging because it's like, to you, you might feel differently, right? I might be colorblind. I don't know. I don't think I am, but I might be. Or, you know, I might have different feelings about the same colors, and someone else might go, oh my God, look at those amazing colors. And I'm looking at it going, it's real confusing. The thing about color for me is I mark down in the category of color. If when I look at the piece, say it's animals, like in grass, if when I look at the piece, it's hard to figure out where the animals are and where the grass are. And that's more of a contrast thing, but contrast isn't one of the categories. So I tend to, in my mind, substitute clarity for the word color. Maybe that language has to shift too. But when we say color, if it's not confusing to look at, to me, it's successful. If when you look at it, the motif that I think that you as the maker meant to jump out and stand out as the main motif, if that motif is jumping out and standing out, then you are successful color wise and you're going to get full points. If you've got a very busy composition and your main motifs are not standing out, and I feel like the composition is confusing to look at, I have to mark down in that category because I feel like color, I'm not a big one for high color contrast, right? Like it's not like, ooh, there's not enough contrast. I'm okay with there not being enough contrast, but if there's so little contrast that I can't make out the picture, then that's not good. That's not super successful. Um, so we swapped out the category called creativity for originality because at least in rug hooking, right, and I don't judge the quilts or other divisions, so it's up to other judges to figure out what the right language is. But in the rug world, what I think they meant or what they ought to mean is that we're either talking about rugs that have a commercial pattern or rugs that are original designs. One is not better than the other. But if we're judging the big prize, like the big all around big prize that gets the biggest money prize, I have to say I'm more inclined to pick a rug that has an original design because the originality points would be higher on that rug. So if I have two rugs that are equally technically fantastic and great, I don't think it's necessarily better to be doing original work than commercial patterns, right? How could I possibly say that? I do commercial patterns too. I do other people's commercial patterns for fun, right? I still collect other people's patterns. But if we're talking about something, if we're talking about a rug that is going to get the top prize, a rug that is equally good to a commercial pattern rug is going to get extra points because there's another layer of difficulty added to it. That is, the maker has created an original design. I don't want to say it's the icing on the cake because, again, I don't necessarily think that everybody should be designing their own rugs, right? And I don't think that rugs that are designed, that are unique designs, have necessarily more merit than other rugs. But in this situation where you put a rug in and you put your piece forward and you say, here it is, this is an expression of me, and someone has done the design too, they have done the full process, right? So I just feel like if all things are equal, I would bump up and give the larger prize to an original design. It doesn't mean that for originality, it doesn't mean that patterns that I recognize as commercial designs, right? If I see something and I go, I know that's a Barb Carroll design, no problem, right? No problem. I use Google Lens to check stuff too. I've got a lot in my head, thank God. But, it's not like I would mark someone down hugely because it wasn't an original pattern, but for the originality, um, um, whatever tab, and all of this is done on a little computer, right? A totally unique, one of a kind rug would score a little bit higher than a commercial pattern. Having said that, when I look at a commercial pattern, right, and even if I know the pattern and I've seen it 100 times, if I'm looking at this particular rug and I'm thinking, okay, here's grapes, here's some more grapes, but I'm thinking, ooh, I've never seen grapes done like this before, right? Ooh, look at the colors they did with the grapes, and look at the way they handled the background or the border around the grapes. Now we're not just talking about grapes. We're talking about someone who's taken a commercial pattern. Okay, it's not their pattern. It's a commercial pattern. Ooh, but look what they've done with the grapes. Unexpected, right? So that puts the points up for that. Grapes done the way I've seen grapes many times done. Still a great rug, and it'll be high in many of the categories, but in originality for me would be less high. Things that are unexpected, right? In this kind of a artistic category, um, have a little more merit as things go, right? Which isn't to say that if you're a person who does hooked rugs and you love commercial patterns and you have a whole bunch and you'd like to put them in the country fair, you should absolutely put them in the country fair. I don't want the country fair to turn into a gallery show. Nothing wrong with gallery shows, right? But there is a difference, right? We're putting our rugs out there in a country fair situation. A fair is a different context. I'm going to come back to solder. A fair is a different context because a lot of you have fairs coming up in your areas. Put your rugs out there. That's a great way to do outreach. Let other people see your rugs. See if they need a volunteer who will sit there for 3 hours on one of the big days and work on your hooking. Answer questions about hooking. That is the best way to get other people going, right? Bring other people to the craft. They will love it. They will be eternally grateful. Put your rugs in there. They're going to be beautiful rugs. All of your rugs have merit, no doubt about it. But in a judging situation, we try to make it as fair as possible and try to give as much credit as possible for the different things that each person does right, right? I never note anything that is done wrong. I'll just say, in the case of like the border being very wavy, right, because it's not sitting well, or sometimes I get a braided rug because those also fall under my whatever that doesn't sit at all, like doesn't sit at all. I say, the colors in this rug are absolutely beautiful. I almost fell off my chair. I mean, honestly, the most beautiful colors I've ever seen, but it needs to be relaced so that it lays a little bit flatter, right? You always, as a judge, want to say something positive. If there's something glaring, like it's not sitting on the floor, you need to kind of address it, but in the nicest possible way so that that person comes back and wants to do something and show something for the next year. So the judging in that kind of a context is a little different than I think solder. And I can't speak for solder because I'm not close to the organization at all. I'm going to be very candid and say I don't know with solder who the judges are who are accepting or not accepting rugs. I don't know what the criteria is for celebration or the Sauter show. But I would assume and hope that the judging system is such that whether the names are known or not, that there is always a push to introduce new people and show the work of new people. You see what I mean there? So I'm hoping, and I don't know, but I'm hoping it is a situation where you are seeing new work from year to year and issue to issue, because I do tend with celebration, I look at them, I love them, but you often see the work of the same people over and over. I don't know how any of that works over there, but I do hope. I don't know that it's not anonymous, but I'm thinking it's not anonymous. I feel it's better when it is anonymous. Um, because we are a small community. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to stop right there. Um, and I hope that, and I don't know, but I hope that at Sauter, things are also judged um, on their own merit and not being compared to other rugs. I think that's the most abstract but important point in judging. Is if they're, I saw the quilting division doing this the last 2 years, putting a few quilts out and looking at them on the same table, and I'm thinking, that's not how you're supposed to do it. It's a small point, but it's a big deal when you're looking at them next to each other, right? It's like you're comparison shopping at a store, right? You're holding two sweaters like this and you're going, which one would look better on me? That's the opposite of what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, each one on its merit. And if you put it aside for a second and you can't remember what merit that piece has, it doesn't have much merit, right? You should already have it as soon as you look at the piece. Give it some time, give it some thought. You should lock into your head, well, this piece was extraordinary because it left me with this impression, this feeling, this sense of color, this sense of harmony, whatever, right? Like you shouldn't have to put two next to each other to say eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or good, better, best, in my opinion. So hopefully that's helpful. I would say always put your stuff out there. Um, Andrea said peas pottage got rejected for celebrations. I was upset at first, but then I thought they only have a small amount of space to put anything in an issue. Andrea, that I didn't know that. Peas pottage was insane. Do you remember the like Renaissance or medieval minstrels, right? Like in a room, the two characters playing, what was it, the flute and like the double bass or something like that, with dressed in costume. That is an extraordinary piece. Um, I would have definitely put that piece in because it's different, and different judges are going to be looking for different stuff. Like for me, I'm always looking for some kind of storytelling quality because that's me. Maybe I'm layering something on that shouldn't be there, but I feel like if you're showing me something that I'm supposed to interpret as a piece of art, right? It's not like here's my manuscript, like here's a physical what. If it's supposed to be a piece of art and I'm supposed to be regarding it as a piece of art, I expect it to make me feel somehow, is some way. And if it doesn't, if I just go, ooh, the grapes are good, then the grapes are good, right? And then I'll judge it according to like how technically how great the grapes are. But in terms of color and composition is another category. Composition, and the thing about composition is if you don't know if it's a commercial pattern or not, it's hard to judge the composition category. That's why I always have my phone and I'm looking stuff up and I bring a bunch of catalogs so I can say, oh, I think this is an original composition or not. Composition is another part of it. But if it doesn't make me feel anything other than technically that's amazing, then it gets very high technical scores but lower scores in every other category. And maybe that's not fair, right? Maybe that's not fair, but I think I am one of the more fair judges, I have to say, as things go. And yes, there's not enough space or room for everything and everyone's work. But I think if this craft is going to continue, there has to be room for new people's work, different people's work, and there has to be room for different styles of work. And I think we have to get away from the idea that everyone wants to call rug hooking an art and not a craft. Well, then don't regard it like it's an art, right? Regard it as something that you anticipate being artful, not something where you can say like, oh, technically that's not as important, it's 50-50. I personally feel like the pieces that I see, the judging is based more than 50% on technical prowess. And I think that's the opposite of the conversation that we keep having, like, oh, I don't think it's a craft, I think it's an art. Well, if you think it's an art, also be thinking about the newness of it, the composition of it, the materials that are used, right? The sense of experimentation, flair, flavor, fun, all of the stuff that gives the piece energy, right? So that's just my opinion for what it's worth, and I'm sure it's not worth much. So never feel bad, right? We've all been rejected from everything from Janice Ian's basketball team, right, at 17, to art stuff, to everything, right? I have, maybe you have, we all have. It's not it's not a sort of verdict on who you are, or what you're capable of, or what your talent is, or what that piece is. Oh God, we talked way too long about that. I'm so sorry. Um, Olivia, great to see you. Okay, let's see. They both worked without a frame. Okay, wait a minute. Let me catch up here. So much interesting texture. Amazing. They both worked without a frame, right? They both. Who's the other one we're talking about? Um, I think I missed a comment. Louisa works without a frame, 100%. Oh, oh yeah, Louisa and Lewis, right? Louisa and Lewis. Yeah, they worked on their laps. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, Louisa and Lewis both worked on their laps, without a frame. um, and hello to Olivia. Judy says, IMO. IMO. What is IMO an acronym for? Help me out. What's wrong with me? IMO. All of these shows should have um, something published on their website so people have an idea of what. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think the problem, Judy, is that sometimes the organization doesn't know who the judge is yet, and they don't know enough about the craft to know what points should be looked at in detail. So now that I've gotten my foot in the door of the big E, I'm in a better position. They trust me and they know me now. I'm in a better position to say, this category shouldn't be there. It should be there for quilts, but it shouldn't be there for rugs. So, and then it's like, okay, well, let's scratch that. Do you see other things that should be there? And it's like, yeah, I think originality should be there, right? Because that is part of rug making. There should be almost a separate category for commercial rugs, and I think there is with solder and with celebration, right? There's a whole section that's commercial patterns as opposed to original patterns. And again, we're not saying one is better than the other. We're just saying if you made your own pattern also, we want to give you extra credit and extra points for doing that part of it as well. Hey, maybe we'll get to a place in our lives where it's like you also bring up the sheep, you raise the sheep, right? And you spin the wool, and then you use that. Maybe at some point in the future it's like, oh, you also keep the sheep. Well, that's even more points. Who knows how far we need to take this conversation, right? I'm kind of being silly and exaggerating. Shannon says, I agree with Judy. I'm so clueless on the subject. Um, yeah, I think what's daunting is the lack of information. For me, the most sort of daunting and negative aspect of submitting to celebration or solder is that I've heard from so many people um, that they've been disappointed, or I've heard of pieces like Peace Pottage that have been submitted and rejected, and I honestly can't account for that. I don't understand that, and it's not just because we're friends and we look at each other's work. When I see some of this work like Peace Pottage, I'm thinking, Andrea, that's so different. That's exactly what we should be looking at, right? It's a piece of storytelling. It gives you a different idea. It's a subject I've never seen before in rug hooking, right? I mean, that was a very ambitious piece, and it was beautifully executed. And not only was that piece beautifully executed and just an original, like, feel like you could almost hear the chamber music playing when you look at that piece. The things that you took out of the composition from the photograph, the way that the light faded and was mellow, it's like you felt like you were sitting there in that light listening to music, like you felt like you were there. There's a lot to be said for those invisible qualities, right? So it's frustrating. It's frustrating. But never try, never win, right? If it's important to you for whatever reason to have your piece acknowledged, or you just think, oh, wouldn't it be fun to see it in celebration or to see it at solder? Absolutely, put it in and hope for the best. But if it doesn't get in, you have got to promise me that you are not going to take that to heart, because I can guarantee you, right? My pieces are not great and I'm not technically great and I love them the way they are, but I wouldn't enter because I'm not super friendly, but and I'm busy as hell. But if it was important for me to put a piece in, and I hoped it would be put in, I can guarantee you my pieces wouldn't be taken. They're not good enough. They're not good enough. But I still love what I'm doing. I love being here. I love working on more pieces. I love working on projects. I love talking about the craft. I love the craft, and I'm in the craft. I'm in it to win it. And yeah, just don't, you can't let anything get you down, right? You have to keep going. You can let it get you down for a little while, but then you have to walk it off, right? Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. All right, so let's move on. Karen says all rugs are accepted for the solder show. Maybe we didn't need to have this conversation after. Is that true? I mean, I feel that it should be true because it can't be such a large affair that it's not possible to accommodate the people who would like to put something in. Um, all right, very interesting. It's a for what it's worth, Paula. It's a for what it's worth. Everybody feels differently, and there is. I'm not saying at solder or at celebration because I don't know who the people are, but I will say I know at some fairs and stuff there is a coven of witches in charge, and there's nothing you can do about that except join them, right, and start a revolution. That's the only thing that you can do. Usurp, overturn, get things back on the rails, right? That'll bring more people to this craft too. You can't just let the coven of witches dictate just because they are an institution, right? So be careful and mindful of that dynamic because that is present. The smaller the fair, the higher the likelihood that there could be a coven of witches in charge of the whole ordeal. So, grain of salt. Okay, exactly what I was looking for, Deanna. It's a different world than entering a rug in an art show. Absolutely, with other sorts of artwork. It's judged as a piece of art for sure. Yeah. Very okay. Interesting that you say that because um, sorry, I'm just catching up with your comments. I meant to show you. We were driving around a little bit yesterday because it was the kids' last day before the school break, and I was looking for some like antique stores and some cute stores and some treasures and things, and we kind of struck out. But we were in a part of Connecticut. It wasn't my favorite area, right? It used to be Woodbridge, if you know this area. It used to be like the center of antiquing in Connecticut. Not so much anymore. It's like different vibe, either very, very fine stuff, and 90% of the shops are closed. But I found a really cute store that had a lot of rug beaters that were super cute and a few rugs that were cute, but priced on the higher side, and geometrics, which I love, but none of them spoke to me. But there was a little gallery next door, and I thought, okay, let's check that out too. Well, they had a textile, I'm never going to think of the name of it. They had a textile exhibit going on. Now, this is just a story to tell you how subjective this conversation can be. We might not make it to Kent today after all. We'll see how it goes. The So I went into the gallery next door, right? It was super quaint. It was not hideously overpriced. It was very small. And there was a fiber exhibit going on. And the theme of the exhibit was Newport. And Newport is one of my favorite places, right? Because I was brought up in Rhode Island. So I thought, ooh, Newport. And a few of the pieces were rope, right, that had washed up on the beaches, like rope from boats and sailboats and things. Some of it had been dyed, almost like macrame pieces, knotted together into these huge, thick, heavy textile kind of installations that looked like macrame on steroids. You know what I mean? So I liked the rope pieces. They were very, very cool. There was a couple of pieces that were mounted on copper-colored velvet and just in a vintage frame that were small pieces of rope kind of tacked down that looked like embroidery, right? They weren't sewn. They're kind of sitting on the surface, but they must have been tacked somehow, a daisy stitch or whatever, that looked like embroidery. And those are kind of cool. But the main part of the exhibit with the Newport theme were a bunch of woven pieces that were absolutely gorgeous to look at. They were done on a loom, help me out here, that was about this big, maybe 5 or 6 inches across, and mounted in shadow box like floating frames, right? Super artful. but the theme was Newport, and I thought it was all Newport, Rhode Island, so like hence the fishing theme and all of the rope and macrame and woven stuff. All of the images were of Newport cigarettes, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You remember the boxes of Newport that are white with the turquoise top? So there were probably 10 or 15 beautiful, colorful, small woven pieces that were a stylized or abstracted version of the Newport cigarette box. Now, for me, my dad died of lung cancer from smoking. It was not a good sight, right? So I had an immediate negative shutdown reaction because I thought I've seen too many of those boxes in my life. So for me, it was like from across the room, I saw and I thought, "Ooh, what's that? What's that turquoise? Is that like the sky or the water?" And then I got closer and I thought, oh, it's a cigarette box, right? But it was beautifully done and artfully done, right? And they are called Newports, those cigarettes. But it's just an example of if I was a judge, I would have to recognize that I was making this personal association that could not affect the merit of the work. It could not affect even the creativity or originality category for judging because that would not be fair and unbiased, right? I have backstory and baggage with cigarettes. So, but at the same time, I wasn't judging. I was shopping, and I was not interested in buying because that backed me right up. You know what I mean? We all have personal associations and triggers, right? And things that are built into our garbage and our baggage and our personal dumpster fires that affect how we feel about stuff. And the conversation about judging is good because not just being a judge, but going to a show and looking at other people's work, rugs, quilts, textile stuff, whatever, scrimshaw, whatever. I think it's important to realize when you are being biased because bias is not, there's no room for bias when we're looking at art um, in a judging sense, right? In a shopping sense, it's a different story, right? I don't want any reminders of cigarette packets in my life ever. But I could appreciate how colorful and beautiful the work was. Um, so interesting. It's just funny, and I just stumbled into it. It was interesting, and it made me have this crazy conversation in my head, which was helpful because it brought me up and it made me think. Um, separate these thoughts and these associations because particularly coming upon the judging season, we're getting together as a group of judges soon. Have to have the real distinction in my head that that you have to separate how you feel and what something brings up in you with the merit of the piece as it is, right? Because it is a great idea, right? The idea of using sort of a still life like a cigarette box that is quite graphically successful, pretty, and iconic. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Judy says, Karen says, the rug I submitted last year for celebration was not accepted, but the one I submitted this year was accepted. Just keep trying. Yep, try again. That's great advice, Karen. Yeah, try again. It might also be a question of, if there's a lot, of one thing, there's never a lot of piece pottage, right? That's impossible, right? Piece pottage is completely in its own category. There's not a lot of other images of like Renaissance minstrels, right? There's not a lot of that, but I can see that if there were a lot of rugs that are of people, for example, or period or costume. This isn't a good example because it's so unique, but you know what I mean. If there's a lot of abstracts one year, you could see them saying we have to pull the plug on the abstracts because we don't want the whole thing to be themed out one way. So there is always that. I think Karen's perfectly right. Just keep trying, right? Putting your work in front of other people. Just keep trying. But it's not a no because it's not good. It's a no for another reason, but unfortunately you don't get to know what that reason is, right? And that's the part that can sting and hurt and back you up. But just know that it's not really a no, right? So, all right. Pam says solder is one thing. Celebrations is by Rug Hooking Magazine. It is. I think there's a lot of common people that overlap, though. I think there's a lot of people who are linked to both, right? Who are in positions of judging and choosing. So I think there's some overlap there. And Judy says, I have a lot of opinions today. Sorry, I kind of represent the celebration. I kind of resent that celebration charges people to submit their work. I don't like that kind of exclusion. Lots of art shows do that as well, though. Judy, yeah, that's absolutely true. Um, The only thing I would say in defense of that is that now that I'm putting out Magpie, it's so expensive to put a magazine out. It's so expensive. I don't know how they're able to do it because I know what the subscribership is like, and I know what the cost of putting out a magazine is like, even in a larger volume. It's skin of the teeth. Um, but I agree. I have to say I do agree. If it's a celebration of title aside, if it's a celebration of work, it would be nice if there wasn't that immediate pre filter of money involved, right? If you have the extra money or if you don't have the extra money, it would be an even playing field if that did not exist. So in that regard, ooh, there's a fly or something in here. Um, I get that. I get that. It does. It is a back. It is a back you up thing. I totally get that because it becomes some kind of a weird lottery at that point. Like when you put a raffle money in for a quilt, they're never going to call you on, right? That kind of a feeling. Um, Karen says, thanks, Pamela. Goes to show you just need to keep trying. And Pam says, I would have had the same reaction. Tommy had lung cancer surgery. My father passed from cancer caused from smoking. Negative vibes. Yeah, yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? And but that's why I'm not going to buy one of those pieces. But in terms of them being interesting to look at, yeah. Rugs are we're not going to make it to Kent today. We're going to have to do that next time. We'll do that on Wednesday together. I'll change the description of this video. Um, in terms of subjects, right? I think one of the things that we do that's really important on this show is we talk about different categories of rugs, right? And we definitely talk about the merit of floral rugs, right? We just had our month of roses at Ribbon Candy Hooking. There were 31 days of rose patterns, right? So it's not like I think that flowers are not a good subject, right? I think they're a great subject, and there's a book coming up on that whole month of roses thing with probably 50 or 60 rose patterns in it. So it's not like one subject is better than the next, right? And it's not like we can break rugs down into like historic patterns and floral and scroll traditional patterns and geometric patterns and landscapes. There's very few still lifes that we see in rug making or in textile art in general. That's why the cigarette boxes were kind of interesting to me, was because I thought you rarely see still lifes in textiles. You see still lifes painted, but you don't see still lifes in textile very often. Very few exceptions. And I thought, in that regard, it's very interesting, right? Drew me in a little bit because that part of it was real interesting. It was just, if it was something else, like a cereal box or something like that, I would have been much more inclined um, to linger. But I think on this show, we do talk a lot about what is possible and try to think outside the box. You don't have to do something new and different. You might be in rug making because you love the traditional aspect of the craft. That's my favorite aspect of the craft too, right? I love the super traditional antique rug. That's my favorite. But having said that, if the craft is going to live and grow and continue to evolve and morph, right, and attract more people, new people, as a traditional form, I don't mean rug tufting, I mean as rug hooking, traditional form, then I think it has to constantly change and show variety. There's so many things that you can hook up or punch, right? There's so many different things. We talk so much about subjects and compositions here. I think that that's important because I feel like when I came to this craft, I don't think that I am any kind of like a landmark. I'm a weird speed bump at best, but I think when I came to this craft, everything was very sort of black and white to me, and there wasn't a lot of gray area. And the more we talk about rugs and the more rugs that you send that I get to look at and we get to share together on Friday nights and gallery nights and on the show and in our Facebook group, the more variety I'm seeing. And I'm seeing more variety than ever. And I think that has to be a good thing, right? You don't have to be new and different. You don't have to be novel and wacky and pop art and culturally tuned in. You don't have to have like an opinion, a political point of view, a message, a slogan. You don't have to, right? There's room for that in this craft, but there's also room for this in this craft, the traditional, right? and everything in between, right? I think the best advice for like making pieces or coming up with pieces, whether, particularly if you're designing yourself, is to do what you love the best. Do what catches your eye, a photograph you've taken, a vignette you have set up on the wall, right? Or you're looking at right now, your eyes looking, I'm looking at the shelf. Teddy's got like a giant Godzilla, a photograph of E.T., a Wedgwood vase with crayons in it. This is exactly what's there. A video box set of King Kong videos and a character from Family Guy, a stuffed plush of the dad from Family Guy, and a character from the video game Cuphead, right? So I probably won't do a hook drug of that. There's a lot of copyright issues right there, but you know what I mean. You look around your own house and you've set up things that you like that are your taste already, might be nice subjects for rugs, right? Something different. Series, right? The idea of doing a cigarette box as a series is a cool idea. For me, it's the subject that got me, but the idea of doing this series, that's exciting, right? There's so many things to think about. There's so many directions you can go with your own work. If you love your commercial patterns and you're like, oh, I've got my Barbara Carols and I've got my old tattered flags and I've got my ribbon candy hookings and I've got them in a pile and I feel like I'm never going to get to them all in my lifetime because I love them all so much, great, great. Make them, enter them in shows and fairs so that we can all look at them, right? Because it's all important work. Whether I drew it or you drew it, it's all important work. And the way that it's made, I'm sorry, but I will always believe this, that is the full story, right? The design, right? I can't take too much credit for being the designer. Here's my line drawing. It's you that has to figure out what materials you're going to use, get those colors in the way that you want it. Unless you bought a kit, right? If you just bought a pattern from anybody, it's you that puts the thing together. I hope that you will never say, like, even if you take a class with me, teacher, Deanna, David, ribbon candy hooking, it's not me. Once you've got that pattern on your lap in your frame, it is your work. Thank you for the credit, and I hope someone else buys the same line drawing if they like it, if they like what you did. But what you did is really what you did, right? I did a line drawing. You do what you do. We all can go in any direction, right, with our work, whether it's commercial patterns or original patterns. That part, I think there has to continue to be both, right? We have to accommodate everybody in this craft. Painterly rugs need to be a category. Charlotte, that's it, isn't it? That's it. That's the perfect word, painterly, for, I'm trying to introduce the term creativity, right? Over originality, right? But creativity, that's the thing. All of these, it's like levels on a stereo, all of these worlds converging. The color, when they do the color category, the composition category, it is what we're really saying is like, how painterly is it, right? Because it's in an art show. So it's not like, oh, that's good, it came out good. It's in an art show. So there does have to be that one little small angle, but not everybody's there yet to be able to say, I get what the expectation is in the painterly category, right? But we're getting there. We're getting there for people to say, I get it. I get it why that rug was judged higher than this rug, just in a judging context, because of that je ne sais quoi painterly quality to it, right? But then again, we don't want to make people who do things that are very traditional back up or back away. It's a fine line, isn't it? It's a tough conversation and it's a fine line. Because inclusion is everything with this craft, and we can't forget this is a thrift craft. I feel like that spirit has to be in every style of rug, or it doesn't appeal to me personally, right? As a judge, different story, but it doesn't appeal to me personally unless I feel that original spirit of the rug, of the craft, the heart of the craft in the rug. Has to have heart, right? Has to have heart. But I'm probably the least technical judge out there, so. Pam says, I think that's what I love best about rug hooking. All ways are acceptable. I've never seen a disaster rug. No, I've never seen a disaster rug either. I really haven't. They all have something wonderful about them. I totally agree. Totally agree. You can, rugs that are technically, that have visible technical problems, those things can be changed quite easily. Sometimes, like the cutest little small rugs that I see on the Facebook page, technically they're not that well finished or whatever. But I think, ooh, look at that little gem. That really has something, right? You can't measure the gem quality, right? Maybe that needs to be a category too. Just kidding. You can't measure that. It's a feeling, right? It's a feeling. So, yeah, we'll see. Submit to everyone, everywhere. Hope for the best. Fingers crossed. Be ready. If it comes back to you as a no, send it to the next place, right? Send it to the next place. On to the next, right? Just keep going. That's the main thing. Sorry we didn't get to Kent today. I think it's good to talk about fairs and rugs and things too, because I'd like to see more rugs out at these country fairs, not just the one that I judge, but I go to a lot of country fairs and there's so few rugs out there. Let's get going. Get your stuff out there. Get it into the library display case. Get it into the local fair. Get it wherever you can get it in front of people's faces, so that brings up the conversation. It's going to be an annoying conversation. Oh, is that latch hook? Oh, I used to do that when I was young. You're going to have that conversation, and you're going to have to say, no, it's not. It's not that. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not that. It's this, and you can do it, right? Brace yourself. All right, everybody. We got a little bit off course, but it was fun, and thanks for keeping me company. I'm having a miserable time with this stupid thing. I'm trying to keep it elevated, but I will be back with you on Wednesday. And I promise you, I'm going to change the description of this video right now. We're going to come back and look at some of these rugs. He said some really funny things at the end of this book that I want to share with you. Great conversation starters. Let's come back together on Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. I will see you all then. It was a good rabbit hole. Hey, it's coffee time, right, Pam? This is coffee time. We're here to chat and spend time together, right? I can't do like a formula show every time, or it won't keep you on your toes, will I? I'll see you all on Wednesday. And just FYI, Friday, I'm going to be on live with Kirsten, and we're going to be looking at the Design Like book, which we remembered we never done. We did an interview where we talked about my first book, but we never looked at the Design Like book, and I forgot. Kirsten forgot too. We just kind of forgot. So on Friday, we're going to be looking at the Design Like book. It'll be a two-person screen. If you have questions for Kirsten and you're not going to be live, send them to her, right? See if she can hit me with some questions that stop me in my tracks. It's always fun to have those kinds of challenges live. But I'll be with you on Wednesday, and then again on Friday when we look at the Design Like book together and talk about Design Like 2. All right, have a great tomorrow, everybody. Thank you so much, and I will see you all.